Hi friends, welcome to this brief tutorial wherein we will discuss the differences between JPA and Hibernate. So what are we going to learn in this tutorial? We will be learning what is JPA, what exactly is Hibernate, and what are the differences between these two terms. Okay, so let's have a look at what is JPA. JPA stands for Java Persistence API. JPA is a specification which was defined as part of EJB 3.0 and now it is the industry standard for ORM. And what is ORM? ORM is Object Relational Mapping. It's a mapping which allows the mapping of Java objects to rows in the tables. So JPA provides API for managing relational data in Java-based applications. That means you can persist Java objects as database rows, or you can retrieve rows and map them to Java objects, or manage the objects which talk to the databases using ORM like JPA. So this mapping between Java objects and database table rows are done the combination of XML and Java annotations. So for example, in this picture you can see there are two Java objects which talk to the database. So you might want to convert the instance of Java object into a table row, or you might want to retrieve a row from a database table and map it to a Java object. So these things can be done if ORM is configured so that objects can talk to the ORM and ORM in turn talks to the database. So your objects can directly map to the database row without the use of SQL. So here JPA plays the role of ORM. Okay, so now that we have understood the basics of JPA, now we will have a look at two sample mappings which are used when you are trying to configure JPA for your application. Okay, so let's have a look at a Java class which is managed by JPA. As you can see, this class is called customer and it has an annotation called entity. So this entity annotation tells JPA that it has to manage this class for its database transactions or database related activities. Similarly, there is one more annotation called ID, and this annotation tells JPA that this ID field is mapped to the primary key of the table, which is mapped to the customer class. And as you can see, there are two import statements, javax.persistence.entity and javax.persistence.id. So javax.persistence is the package name which is used for classes which are related to JPA or which are used by JPA. Now let's have a look at a sample configuration file for JPA. So in this file there are a few things being done. For example, there are properties, database URL, then user ID, password, etc., which tells JPA which database to connect to. Apart from that, there is a class tag which tells JPA which are the classes it has to manage for their connectivity or for their mapping to the database table. So those two, that is the class and the XML file, were the mappings which are used by JPA or the ORM. Now some of the common classes in the JPA API are Entity Manager Factory and Entity Manager. Apart from that, there are many more annotations. For example, there are annotations for restricting the values, and there are annotations for managing the transactions, etc., etc. But those are out of the scope for this tutorial. Now, how do you identify if your application is using JPA? So let's say you're going to work on an application which is already existing, and now you want to continue working on it, and you want to find out if your application is using JPA. So what you need to do is just look for classes in the workspace which are using javax.persistence package. So if you're importing classes from that package, that means you are using JPA. Okay, so now let's have a look at what are the versions of JPA. So JPA currently is available in JPA 2.1 version, and it is following JSR 338 specification. Apart from 2.1, there were two more previous versions, JPA 2.0 and JPA 1.0. So the question is, which version should we use? So answer to that is, usually it's recommended to use the latest versions, but you might find applications which are already using previous versions and they are working perfectly fine. So you can continue using the previous versions as well. And finally, you need to remember that JPA is just a specification. It needs implementation for the application to connect to the database. So just having that specification will not make the Java object connect to the database. You need implementation of this specification which can make it work. So some of the implementations are like TopLink and Hibernate, and since Hibernate is one of the most popular implementation, we will have a brief look at what that is in the next slide. Okay, now that we had a look at JPA, now let's see what exactly is Hibernate. So we'll have a very brief introduction to what is Hibernate and what it does. So Hibernate is implementation of the JPA specification, and that means it's one of the ORM framework implementers, and it is one of the very popular tools in the market. I would say, in fact, it is the most popular tool in the market which implements JPA. So the main job of Hibernate is to make sure that your Java objects can map to database tables, and you can write your objects into rows or retrieve rows and map them to Java objects. It also provides data query, retrieval, and creating criterias and a few other things in its APIs. In the background, Hibernate generates SQL statements which are compatible with the database to which it is connecting. That means if you are connecting to Oracle or you are connecting to MySQL, if there are any syntactical differences in the queries in certain situations for those two databases, Hibernate will take care of translating it to suit the database. It also means that your application can switch the database while the upper layer will be unaware of the changes in the database. So you don't need to change any upper layers. So if your application today uses MySQL and tomorrow you want to switch to PostgreSQL or Oracle or SQL Server, your code should not change. Only thing which is going to change is the configuration in the Hibernate configuration file or the mapping file. Okay, now let's have a look at some of the common questions on the differences on JPA versus Hibernate. So what is the difference between JPA and Hibernate? So the most obvious answer is JPA is a specification and Hibernate follows or implements that specification. So there can be various products which can follow the specification and implement it. So Hibernate is simply one of the most popular implementation of the JPA specification. Then one question which is asked by many people is, somewhere I saw applications are directly using JPA. And if JPA is an API, how does it work without any implementation? So in some application, you might come across some applications where it is directly, the code is directly talking to JPA and you're not using Hibernate or any other tool. So if, as we mentioned, JPA is a specification. So in that case, how your application, how is your application able to talk to the database? So this is a question which confuses a lot of people. So the answer is, actually JPA is implemented by your application server or the app server on which your application is going to be deployed. So JPA, since JPA is part of J2EE standard, so all the app servers need to implement JPA specification. So even if you're not using Hibernate, the app server is going to provide the implementation of the JPA so that your application can work seamlessly even without any real-time product or out of the box product which implements the JPA. So friends, that was a very simple overview of JPA and Hibernate and what are the differences between these two. So in future tutorials, we will see few more things like how to write a sample application which uses JPA, how to write sample application which uses Hibernate, and so on. So thanks for watching my video, and if you have liked it, please click the like button or just mention your comments about what you see about in the video which you liked or what improvements you would like to see. Thank you.